So the first thing that you will notice with 2.0 is the user interface has completely changed. 1.0 is still a fantastic platform. 2.0 is just highly customizable, and I feel, in my own personal opinion, just a little bit of a cleaner and easier to use interface. So I'm really looking right now here at this as a dashboard. I like to start here because with 2.0 we do support true multi-tenancy, where you can organize your asset and data across multiple accounts. You're going to make it much easier to manage different teams, departments, or locations without sacrificing your security or control. And when we look at this, we're going to see one dashboard. I can look at many dashboards for many accounts at Black and White Academy and Bamboo Construction. This just gives you a really clear overview of everything that is going on in your 2.0 instance. Things from how many assets we have, what the asset status is. Maybe if we're using this as a work order ticket, we can use this as work orders. You can have a calendar view. In this calendar view, you can see that I'm looking at warranty expiration dates. We've got a few things that are coming up. This is all customizable, so you can add as many widgets in here as you need to based upon the information in Asset Panda that you're looking to get out of. And these widgets are all dynamic. So for example, if we want to look at the assigned assets, we can just click on this pie piece. It'll pull us up into a saved view that will show you all of the assigned assets, and in particular who has it, maybe even locations. And you can filter this down too to get a better understanding of where all your assets are. And speaking of individuals that are coming into Asset Panda on a multi-account type structure, we do have extensive rules and permissions that we can assign to people. So not only an organization role where somebody will have access to the entire platform, but you can drill it down even further. Somebody has just information on the account, somebody who just works in the module. And then as a collaborator, these are your end users, the people that are out in the field, maybe remote workers. They don't need keys to the castle. They just need to be able to do some very basic things in the system. And we do offer custom roles as well that you can base upon your account and go drill down even into like your module that you're creating. And you can even get so far down and say, hey, they can't do anything other than just maybe form access, limit them to some forms and some viewing. So this is how you're going to keep complete control over your account. Now, because this is multi-tenancy and you can have several accounts, each one of these accounts are going to have these modules, and these modules are mini instances of Asset Panda. So if we look at the PandaWare account and they're tracking facilities in ITAM, ITAM doesn't look at facilities, and facilities doesn't look at ITAM, and we create those rules and permissions like I just showed you. When I'm looking at an ITAM module, you'll see on the left-hand side collections. Consider collections or data points, information that you need to keep track of. IT assets, the top one, is usually your movers and shakers. These are the assets that are continually having things change. Maybe the status changes, the assignment changes, maybe in location changes. And then you have your supporting collections underneath. You'll notice like people are linked over into assigned to, so that way you can keep track of all your staff, maybe even field tech workers or even remote people, and your locations. You can create as many collections as you would like to. So not only just assets, work order, people, locations, departments, but if you would like to collect information on POs, warranties, invoices, anything you would like to add in here, maybe your one module for fleet maintenance, you can add those in as well. So that's how we're going to start looking and setting up our collections. If you're a current 1.0 client and you're looking at 2.0, one of the limitations in 1.0 are your fields. You were only allowed, I believe, to have about 10 fields. And Asset Panda 2.0, with that field restriction, has been lifted. So now you can add as many fields across the top as you want to. Now, all the fields that you're seeing in here, folks, these are all customizable fields, things that you add in based upon the information that you need to have on your assets. And adding a category is just as simple as just clicking your little three dot down and just saying add a field. Maybe we want to know the GPS location. Tons of different data types that you can enter in here, including formulations if you need to, GPS coordinates. And then when you click save, you're going to have this new field added directly in here for you. So each collection can have different sets of fields just based upon the type of information that you need to collect, and then potentially associate any of these collections over with your IT assets, making it so easy to understand the information that you need. Adding assets is pretty simple. You can either use the import spreadsheet. You can add an asset directly from here by selecting the information that is internal that you program in and click save, or the sexy way to do it is using forms. Now, forms are workflows. So you can see here we have a new asset form. Our implementation team will help go ahead and set forms up for you if you need that. But forms are a nice dynamic and easy way to add things, to update assets within the system. You can see as we click through here, like if I select my Windows laptop as my category, dynamically this is going to change with only the computers for Windows that I offer. If I go over to like MacBook, but for example, you'll see that the Mac device type now is in here, so that way we can sort of select what kind of Mac we need to. The asset tags and any of the barcoding or serial numbers you may have, you can use an onboard scanner or use the Asset Panda 2.0 app via iOS or Android to go ahead and scan those asset tags or those barcodes in. So these are just some very simple ways of getting all of your data either into Asset Panda from 1.0. If you're starting out fresh, just import it with a spreadsheet. It's going to make your life so much simpler. A couple quick things to note. You'll notice that we have up in the upper right-hand side a hidden field. So we now have the ability to hide these fields based upon the information that you want to see. So for example, if I don't need to know my acquisition date or any of these type fields, we can deselect them for an easy way to see the data in a cleaner view. And we also have the ability to filter. So if I want to say I need to see any of the assets that are assigned, and I would like to make sure that the, let's say, location, for example, if I can find location in here, the location is going to be equal to, let's say, New York, and I apply these filters. Now I get a very clean view of the category status and assigned and where it's located. I can also save these views now. That'll come down into a saved view category on the left-hand side. So I can quickly and easily access this view without having to go back into our collection, rerun all those filters. You can also share these views out, and something that's very exciting that will be coming out shortly is you'll be able to lock this view down. So anybody that you share this view with, if you lock it, they will not have the ability to change the view. Currently they do. So just something to be mindful as you're looking at 2.0. When you have all of your assets in here, and let's just say you've gone through an entire cycle and you need to understand where everything is, that is where auditing becomes very, very important. And Kelly is going to walk you through some auditing features and how you're going to be able to do your audits in a very streamlined and efficient way. So Kelly, back
Yeah.
to you.
Awesome. Thanks for the overview. Really appreciate that. So let's jump over and take a look at audits. So, I guess the big question is, why do we even want to audit in the first place? And I like to look at audits as a way of making sure Asset Panda has all the information and the exact information that I want it to have. So, an audit is a great opportunity to make sure that everything is correct. We see customers doing audits on a very regular basis, maybe quarterly, they might do them monthly. We see customers that do audits on a yearly basis as well. But audits are another great way to collect information. So not only are we checking to make sure everything is accurate and everybody who's using Asset Panda is doing what they're supposed to be doing, which we know sometimes is the hardest part, but it also can give us an opportunity to add additional information. And that's something that I really like to mention because we see this a lot in implementation. Maybe when we started originally, we were collecting information in fields 1, 2, and 3. And then we added a fourth field and we don't have all this information. Well, audits is a way for us to, every time we we check that particular item and get eyes on it to also update certain pieces of information. So what we're looking at right here is my audit screen, and you can access your audits through your tools menu and then audits up here at the top of that main pop-out menu here. Which remember that you can collapse this menu if you want to, if you do want more room on your screen. And what I've done is I've created a Power Hour audit. So we're just going to open up this audit real quick and take a look at how I've had it configured. So you have a couple steps that you have to move through, but the nice thing is that we're going to move you through those steps with the ability to save and continue to each step along the way. So the first setup section is usually pretty simple. We want to name that audit, and we can give it a description if we want to provide just a little more color to it. And then in addition to that, we have to select a collection that we're going to use to audit. So remember, Matthew talked a little bit about those movers and shakers. These are the things that we're assigning out. They break, they get transferred to people. So these are the things that we really want to make sure are accurate. So we would use maybe one of those collections. And in this case, I used my particular account, my particular module, and then my IT assets as my example here today for my audit. So that is my mover and shaker and dynamic collection. So once I set that, I would hit save and continue. And the next step here is going to be record selection. And I got to be honest, folks, this is probably one of my favorite screens in Asset Panda, and you're about to find out why. So for starters, I can very easily filter. Now, my IT assets that I have in my collection include things like my consumables and my serialized assets. So I have things like keyboards and mice that I really don't care if I audit. I do not need to know if somebody has a $10 mouse. What I do want to know is they have my $200 docking station or $1,000 computer. Those are the things that I'm looking to audit. So what I did was I applied a filter here saying that my category should not be equal to keyboards and my category should not be equal to mouse because I want to exclude those from the audit. But you do have many operators that you can use here. So you could choose between all or filters. That's also in addition to 2.0, and you're going to see that throughout the platform where you now have the capability of choosing one or the other. And then my operators here can be is equal to. So maybe I just want to do my laptops or I just want to do things that are in a certain location. So I have all those capabilities. Now, something else that has always been a question that I've heard a lot from 1.0 is, well, what if I just want to randomly sample my assets? I don't necessarily want to see everything in a warehouse. I just want to audit 25% of my warehouse items every quarter. That is something that we can now do in Asset Panda 2.0. So if you come over to this more options and click on this, you have two options here. The first one is that random sampling down here that I want to talk about. If we click on this, I can say, I just want to set that percentage of assets that I want to use. And Asset Panda is going to do the work of selecting 20, 25%, X% of those items for you. So this is a really big feature that our beta testers really, really liked. This was something that really helped kind of, with audits a lot. The other thing is dynamic update audit list. Now, this is something that also, if you ever used your 1.0 audits, I want to make sure that I point out to you. So we have records that might get filtered in to the audit, but I don't necessarily want to audit them because they were added very recently. So for example, I set up this audit, I go to start it today, not a problem. I buy a new laptop this afternoon. It fits the criteria of an audit. Do I need to truly audit this laptop? No, I really don't. I'm adding it today. So I can choose by not clicking this box to not include that asset in the audit now. So any of those existing audits that are open are just going to be for what are filtered at that time and not for what might get added. So you can close an audit. You won't continually add audits if you're adding inventory that filter into that audit. So that's something else to keep in mind and a bit of an enhancement from 1.0. So once I've selected those items, I'm going to hit save and continue. And now I get to schedule my audit. So I have two things here. One is my start date and one is my end date. I do not have to choose either one of these. If I choose a start date, that just means that it's going to start on the day that I set it to. But if I don't choose a start date, then my audit can be started at any point in time. I can start it immediately if I want to. My end date also optional. If I leave this empty, then I will have to manually close my audit. So I will always have to manually close if I don't put a specific end date on. Now, I do have an option here to allow the audit to continue after the end date. So if you did want to turn on that option with an end date in mind, you could do that, but then you will still manually have to mark it as end is complete. So this is like saying, I want you to do this by this date, but if you go over a day or so, that's going to be okay. Just make sure you manually close it. So we gave you lots of flexibility on those dates there. Something else I want to mention is the time zone. We ask you to set a time zone here because your start and end date are dependent on that time zone. So if I were to set this at Easter time, look at New York, for example, whenever midnight hits in New York, that's when my start and end date take effect. So if I had said I wanted to start this today on Eastern time zone at midnight this morning, I would have been able in my Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Eastern time zone start my audit. Now that means that it's later in the day for my folks over in Madrid. It's a little earlier in the day for my people out in California, but it's based upon the time zone that I'm setting. Now, my next stop here is going to be my share. This is very similar to how you would assign. In Asset Panda 2.0, we talk about assignment of tasks really as sharing things. So we share this audit with the people we want to be able to conduct it. Automatically, anybody in your admin role, remember you get those four built-in roles with Asset Panda 2.0, anybody in an admin level role will have access to this audit. You can select additional roles. So if you had created custom permission sets, they would also be listed here, or you can assign it to collaborators. You can also assign this to specific users. I don't have any users but me in the platform, but if you had other users, you would be able to assign this to them individually if you wanted to here as well. And our last stop is going to be the advanced tab. Another tab that I really like, another one of my favorite screens. You're going to hear me say that a lot. Sorry, but there are a lot of favorite screens in 2.0, and this is another one of them. So the first one, the manual editing box for the auditing, this allows you to manually audit. So right now I'm planning on auditing based off of my barcode scans. But if something shows up and maybe I can't scan it, do I have the capability of manually typing that asset in? Yes, I want to make sure I toggle that on if I want that capability. This users can change audited records to not audited is really meaning that if you make a mistake and you scan something you didn't want to, you can back out of that scan. You can mark it as not audited, not necessarily to be used in other ways. That's really for you to be able to make corrections to your audit. Audit closing verification. If I want to end this audit, if I want to close it out, I can require a signature. So that's turned on by checking that box. And then allowing users to manually add records. Occasionally, things pop up in audits that we didn't have an inventory for some reason. So if we wanted to be able to add that record, we're going to utilize those forms that Matthew talked about to be able to add a new asset. So we've created an add new asset form. It's in the system. It ties back to this collection and allows us to add assets to the collection. That's how we would actually add that asset in if we scan something not in the system. In addition with that, you also can allow your users to update records. So in our case, all the assets I put in the system, I never collected a serial number on them. So today, as we go part of our audit, we also want to go ahead and update that serial number using that form. So we're going to go ahead and hit save and exit. And that takes us back to our main screen. Now notice that we have a few things happening here. We have this nice little calendar icon. This tells us it's an audit that's not yet started. We see that we don't have any progress on our audit. There was no start and end date, but we see that location. We can continue to share this. And if I pop open my meatball menu over here, I could delete this audit if I want to, but if I want to start the audit, I can go ahead and hit perform from my manual here. Now, what I'd like to do is also switch over and share from my mobile app so you can see what that looks like. So bear with me for 1 second while I switch gears and get you into my mobile. All right. And here we go. You should be able to see my Asset Panda app now, and you can see that there's my Power Hour audit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into that audit. And we see that we have these items that are part of the audit here. And I'm seeing the full list of items. I'm seeing the percent complete. Now, if I wanted to search for an item, I could do so. If I just want to start scanning items, I can do that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my little barcode icon in the lower right-hand corner. You guys may not be able to see that real well on the screen. And I'm going to go ahead and allow my location to be used. And I'm going to scan one of my assets there. And now I created barcodes for these, and notice that because I asked to update that serial number, I'm going to automatically see the serial number that's here in this particular item. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hit my barcode again because I want to capture that serial number with my barcode scan. I'm going to go ahead and scan that barcode. It's going to input my serial number for me, and I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And what I'm going to see now, and we'll just go ahead and cancel that scan. And you can see that I now have a green dot next to the item that I scanned. So that barcode was related there. And if I go up to my full list and look at my audited items, I'm going to see a list of everything in green. In comparison, I can go back to anything that's not audited and see those additional items there. So I have the capability of filtering through that full list. Now let's take a look at what happens if I go and scan something that maybe is not part of my audit. So I'm going to grab my scanner again. Oh, and it was really quick. It found that so fast. Don't mind my fingers in the screen again. We're going to scan that again one time. There we go. Asset has not been found. So what I'm going to do is hit that add new in the bottom right-hand corner of my screen. And here's my new form. So automatically it's going to input that barcode that I already went and scanned. I'm going to go ahead and select this from my serialized categories and find my categories there. Oh, there we go. So let's see. Oh, let me go back here again real quick and see if I can hit that category. Having a little trouble with my phone, freezing up on me there. But we'll go ahead and just submit it there and go ahead and put that asset in place for us now. So bear with me while that populates that asset into my asset record. I'm going to go ahead and cancel now. And notice that I have that blue dot now next to that particular item. So that is telling me that I can filter for all my newly created assets as well. So anything that I created new. So as I'm taking a look at this, if I have something that I decided that I didn't want to create, if I was in a situation where I was not creating new assets, I could look at my outside list. So as I was scanning items that were not supposed to be part of the audit, these are like your unlisted in Asset Panda 1.0. These would allow you to see any items that were not part of the audit, but were still scanned in the room. So I always like to think of kids and laptops. I have a few kids running around the house here, and every now and again in their classrooms, things seem to always go amok. Or when I was in the classroom years ago, it would inevitably things wound up in my classroom that didn't belong there, right? So that happens from time to time. You may scan something that doesn't belong. We keep it on a separate list for you. So the nice thing is that I let's say I went through and I had finished scanning all of my items and everything was complete. Notice that I'm seeing that my records are 30, my audit is 33% complete. So it's going to track that completion for me. And if I go up to my meatball menu here, I can mark that audit as complete if I would like to. Before I do that though, I want to stop the screen share here and I want to jump back over to Asset Panda web version so you can see in comparison what this looks like. So I'm going to jump over to my screen and I'm just going to do a quick reload here. And what we're going to see is this looks completely different and it reflects what I was seeing in the mobile app. So my audit is 33% complete. I've completed 2 of 6 of my items. It's now populating a start date. And if I come over to my meatball menu, I can no longer edit this or log it to perform this audit. I will click on the audit and I'm going to see the audit in progress. Now, a little bit of a difference here. We use the check mark here to show us that this particular item has been audited. We still have the blue box. We still have the capability of filtering a lot of the same ways. And I can exit this audit, but this is a great way for me to see what's been completed thus far. And if I do decide that I want to end the audit, I'm just going to go ahead and mark this as complete. And I would provide a signature. This works the same way on my mobile app. And I would go ahead and hit my done. and that's going to close out that audit. Now, even though that was sitting at 33% and it was technically incomplete, it's now part of my closed audits because I manually closed it. And if I go back to my open, I won't see those audits there anymore. So I will admit, I feel like the audit function is probably one of my favorite functions in Asset Panda 2.0. I think the audit screen is a really nice, clean look at things. And we provide some additional layers to this that you can start to utilize a bit more as well. If we take a look back at our settings icon, whenever we're looking at any of our account settings. And if we go into automations, automations are ways for us to start to collect a little bit from a reporting standpoint. And these are ways for us to automate reports. So if I came in here and I said that I wanted to look at my audit information, I can start to pull information and automate information be sent out, whether it's via notification or via report from those audits. So based on when the audit is closed, for example, maybe I want somebody to know when the audit is closed. I can send a notification or I can send an audit report, and I can send that report in a variety of ways. Now, one thing that we also enhanced in Asset Panda 2.0 is the type of email that you send. So you have the rich text editor with those emails, so you have a lot more capability here. In your to field, you do have dynamic capability here as well. So I can send this to a very specific email of somebody if I wanted to type in their email. I could also choose my user roles. So remember, any of those predefined roles or custom roles that I may create, I could send to everybody on that particular role. I also have the capability of using the audit share list. So remember, if I had assigned this to somebody in particular, I could send this to the people that were on that particular list, and everybody who completed this audit would get notification that this may be completed. I also have some of those capabilities, like when the record is audited, to do some of these same options. And remember, I can always apply a condition. So let's say that whenever a record is audited, for some reason, if I can use any of my audit fields here, or I can use fields from within the collection. So maybe if a record was audited, but that serial number somehow was still empty, maybe that would be a way that I could potentially want to notify somebody about something. Or I could take a look at some of these notes. Maybe I wanted to know that something was on the outside list or that we created brand new assets. So your conditions are now applying based on those particular audited items. And you can still use your any and alls with these particular items here as well. Now, whenever I create triggers with conditions on them, that means that whenever I come over to my reports, I have the capability of filtering. That report will automatically be filtered based off of what I'm seeing and how the conditions I'm applying on the left-hand side. So if I was only looking for newly created items and I was sending a report, it would just include those newly created items on that particular report. But you might also notice that now that I'm doing setting some different triggers and conditions, that my type of actions over here have now expanded a little bit. So beyond sending a notification and sending an audit report, I now can update field values or create records. So keep in mind that I can update field values in any of my other collections within that module. I can select any of those particular fields. I also have the capability of creating a record in any of my other collections. So whenever I have a new asset, for example, maybe I have a collection that I say assets to be reviewed. And whenever I create something new, I'm going to automatically create a record for assets to be reviewed, basically creating like a service request, going back to the service request for somebody to do work, or a task list for somebody to work off of, telling them, this is what the work that you need to complete. So I can create collections for lots of different reasons in Asset Panda 2.0. And I think that's a really key point about 2 versus 1. We really think of collections not as apples to apples with groups. Groups are really just, holding our information and allowing us to work with that data, where our collections, because we're unlimited with the number of collections that we can have, we start to build collections as part of our workflows. So sometimes information will move from collection to collection to collection. Think of it like an approval system, or like this, in this instance, creating that task list of workflow where we're tying it back to an asset, but we have certain pieces of information living in certain collections. So that's a whole different enhancement that we start to work with in Asset Panda 2.0. But lots of fun things that we can play with auditing in the back end and with those automations based on those audit completions and starts. So I just want to double check and make sure we don't have any questions about audits. You guys can always drop those in the chat or the Q&A. Matthew, any words of wisdom or finer points of audits that you might want to mention before we round things out here today?
No, I think the new auditing tool that we're releasing really becomes a very powerful way to understand how, what assets you currently have. I cannot stress enough how many times I talk to people initially, and one of my questions is, when was the last time you did an audit, or how do you know that the assets that you have in your spreadsheet are exactly what you have? And a lot, 9 times out of 10 people, really do tell me, we really don't know, understand what's in there. We've got a compliancy meeting coming up, or the state needs us to report on something, and they're under the 8 ball. So, for folks that are on the call, if you are looking to do audits in 2.0 or even 1.0, I really do implore you to take advantage of that.
Awesome. I would echo that statement as well. From an implementation standpoint, it's something that we probably don't implement on day one, but we see a lot of customers within that first year absolutely taking advantage of audits and realizing the power that they have now. So awesome. Well, hopefully, you learned something about audits today. Have a chance to take a look at things. If you're in a trial or in 2.0, definitely take a look at that. If you have questions about 2.0, if you want to know how you can, start those steps towards getting your own trial version of that, you can always contact. I always say this, it's info, right? Info at assetpanda.com,
Yes.
or contact our support at assetpanda.com, and they'll be sure to get you in the right direction. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining everyone today. We will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.